Hi, I'm Jeff McCausland, founder and CEO of Diamond 6 Leadership and Strategy. I'd like to talk to you today about something I'm sure all leaders are interested in, and that is how do you develop a world championship high-performing team? You know, it's springtime, and when springtime comes around, the first thing I'm thinking about is baseball season, which is about to get underway as teams go to spring training. In this particular year, it's interesting to harken back on the fact that last fall, of course, the Houston Astros won the World Series. And a few weeks ago, the Philadelphia Eagles, not far from where I live, won the Super Bowl. Oddly, these two high-performing teams would not have been picked by many sportscasters at the onset of the season to be the teams that were going to be winning championships or winning Super Bowls. Back in the day, Yogi Berra, a very famous baseball player, had become the manager of the New York Yankees, led the New York Yankees the one season he was the manager to win the American League title. They went to the World Series. A sports writer interviewing Berra at a press conference said to Yogi, how do you build world championship teams? And Berra, known for his very pithy, very succinct statements, looked at the sports writer very intently and he said, hire world championship players and you got a good chance. And that seems to be the essence. Well, that sounds very easy. We know that is quite difficult. First off, all leaders have got to be concerned about what do we do every day. And a guy I used to work for used to say, we do two things every day. We accomplish our mission. For a baseball player, I need to win the game I'm playing today. But at the same time, we've got to spend some time, some energy thinking about how am I growing leaders? How am I growing this team for the future? And those two things have to happen every day. As far as growing that team, I always used to argue that leaders need to think about the following. How do I recruit, develop, and retain the best and the brightest for my particular organization? You know, Joe Madden, who I admire a great deal, manager of the Chicago Cubs, used to say his job was, first of all, a managing job, and he did that using now, which is very, very current, a lot of data about how fast the pitcher was thrown, how fast the batter could run, how fast the outfielder could run, how hard the guy hit the ball, what was the exit velocity, lots of data that he could use to manage the team. But at the same time, he said, you know, in recruiting, we're worried about the heartbeat. We got to think about the human factor. We interview ball players a great deal. We interview their families. We interview their girlfriends. He said, heck, I even try to interview their ex-wives if they got one, because what I want to know is not only does this guy have the statistics, the data, that managerial part that I want for my team, but does he have the heartbeat that'll fit into my team? That's crucial when it comes to recruiting. In terms of developing and retaining people, I think we need to think about four things. First of all, are we investing in people's development? Too often times, you know, when organizations hit a budget crunch, the first thing they do is cut professional development. But many studies will tell you if you got $1 left to spend on the organizations, results are far greater if you spend that on developing the workforce as opposed to spending that dollar buying a new capital item. But unfortunately, most organizations don't do that. High-performing ball players want to know that this team is going to invest in me. They want to see me grow. Second, who gets the credit? Things go very well. Does the boss rush out and immediately take credit, or is credit shared across the team? One CEO said, you know, my job is to deflect credit upon the team. Bear Bryant, to continue the sports metaphor, very famous coach at the University of Alabama, used to say, you know, if anything goes wrong, I did it. If anything goes well, they did it. And that's how I want things to be looked at as far as football games that we play. The third thing I think leaders need to think about for their team is there space to grow? Are people encouraged to innovate? Are they encouraged to show initiative, to take risks, try new things? Can they grow professionally and personally in the organization? And the last thing we have to think about in an organization is how do we react when things go bad? You know, there's that old saying, Murphy's Law, you know, anything that can go wrong will go wrong at the worst possible moment. I oftentimes quote Schultz's corollary to Murphy's Law, that Murphy was an optimist. So we know things will occasionally go wrong. But how does the leader react immediately? Does he or she throw somebody under the bus, quite frankly? Or do they say, it's my team? You know, recently I just left Hawaii, and the day after I left Hawaii, there was a terrible incident involving a fake report, a false report, that said a missile was heading for the Hawaiian Islands. Well, it turned out it was a false alarm. Somebody at the Hawaiian Emergency Management System had made an error. And there was an awful lot of news coverage of this. Sadly, to me, what the news did not cover is the guy who was overall in charge of the Hawaiian Emergency Management System, a guy named Miyagi. As soon as this occurred, a few days later, he resigned because from the onset, he publicly said, "It's my responsibility. I wasn't physically there on site when this worker pushed the button falsely, but that was my team. I trained them. I have responsibility for them." And that's how I think leaders should react when things go bad. You know, if you think back again to this Houston Astros and this Philadelphia Eagle teams that won these championships, think about the interviews after the World Series or after the Super Bowl. Did any of those players, when they were interviewed, say, "Boy, didn't I play a great game? Boy, wasn't I terrific?" No, what did they talk about? They talked about their teammates. They talked about the length of the season. They talked about how they went through adversity together. You know, a very famous Philadelphia baseball pitcher by the name of Doc Holliday. In one season, Doc Holliday would throw a perfect game, and then later in the playoffs, he would throw a shutout. 27 up, 27 down, no runs scored at all. Unbelievable. In the interviews after both of those events, when people pressed him to talk about what it was like to do these two phenomenal things in sports, in baseball, Holliday kept talking about the catcher, kept talking about the outfielders, kept talking about the infield, how well they'd done in fielding the ball. He never once took credit. And after the season was over and the Phillies in that year won the World Series, Doc Holliday went out and bought a Rolex watch for every member of the team. Not only the ball players, but the managers, the coaches, the bat boy, the front office, the secretary. And on each one of those watches, Doc Holliday would have inscribed, "We did it together. Thanks, Doc." And that's what it takes, I think, to build a world championship team.